You're telling me that Facebook is super censored?
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced Tuesday morning,
we're going to work to de-censor Facebook.
So we're going to get back to our roots, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression.
What makes that different from a Chinese platform?
They don't have TikTok in China?
If you type in TikTok on the Chinese app store, it won't pop up.
I thought it was the Chinese mainstream social media that then went global.
That's where it gets convoluted. So
if you need to penetrate China, Andrew, here's your man.
Andrew Spalter is the founder and CEO of East Goes Global, a pioneering company dedicated to bridging the gap between Western talent and sports with Chinese consumers. Spalter has led the company to manage over 700 Chinese social channels, amassing 200+ million followers.
Basic key takeaway is if you're running a business, you have to make sure that you strategically take advantage of that global landscape.
Traditional businesses aren't thinking like that. They're only hyper-focused on
focus. Make sure that you're niche.
Right.
But then the other school of thought, which I was speaking to one of my friends, is like, nope, you don't do that.
everyone who comes in and does business in a certain country, they need help. So in a market like Dubai, like you don't have that overhead to build a business from the ground up because you're not paying taxes and income taxes and salary taxes.
During this 2 weeks lockdown, people actually sang the national anthem from
Wow.
their balcony.
You know, when I was saying prideful earlier, it's that.
But yeah, no, just tell me about you, Andrew. I mean, how has it been now in Dubai? I mean,
It's really good. You know, a lot of people are asking me, they're like, what do you think of it? How is it? What, you know,
this is your first time, right?
first time, would you go back? And the resounding feedback I'm giving is just, it's wonderful. You know, everyone's so kind, everyone's so friendly, from the taxi drivers to the people that you're meeting, you know, randomly in meetings and things like that and doing business. And there, you know, there's a strong sense of, the right word's not passion towards the country and the city of Dubai.
Right.
But it's honor, you know, like I
Right,
think
pride,
people
probably.
feel pride,
Yeah.
prideful, proud.
Yes.
About the city that they live in and the economy and the state of affairs and the business and the food and the culture and like how everything's so clean and how it's so safe and all these different variables that make Dubai what it is. It's pretty groundbreaking.
Who's hosting you? Are you just coming all by yourself?
No,
or someone
so I'm here for something called the 1 billion followers summit.
Yep.
I don't contribute to the 1 billion followers. I have a few thousand myself, but I work with people who have millions and millions and millions of followers. But it's this wonderful conference that's just north of here, past Burj Khalifa at the Emirates Towers in the financial district.
Yes.
And it's really cool. They really brought together a lot of these really bright minds that come together for the content creator sort of economy in that business landscape. So one minute I'm in a meeting with, you know, someone I do business with that I haven't seen in a long time, so on and so forth. And the next, I'm sitting down with someone that I'm inspired by because I see all their content all day long and I'm fascinated by it and they're here. So it's been a nice...
Who's your number one inspiration? Who's here?
That's a good question. I would say, you know, what's fascinating, it's the royal family has come through the conference quite a bit. So today I think it's pronounced, and I might get this wrong, but His Excellency of the Future Museum of the Future.
Right. Museum of the Future.
And then
yes.
another one of, I don't know if it's cousin, sibling, uncle, like I don't know how that world works. So forgive my ignorance. But another one came in for, I think, commerce, I believe. And then yesterday, the sheik came to the conference. So seeing that, you know, you get
attention, right?
Yeah, like when you travel to a new country or city, you go to a hotel, you don't expect to see the president.
Yeah.
You know, coming by
Just
your hotel.
walking by is like chilling, you know?
And it's fascinating. Something that you and I were talking about earlier is the traditional clothing and attire choices. And how do you pronounce that again? Kandura.
Yeah.
Is there an A or an O at the end?
A.
So Kandura. You know, these waves of people come in looking unbelievable in these Kanduras, almost floating. You know, because you don't see, like what we were saying, you don't see the leg movement. and just moving.
That's an interesting. I'll tell you what. That's an interesting observation. Because it's your first time in Dubai. That's why.
Yeah, but
That's
everyone's
crazy.
just
I've
like
never thought of it this way.
kind of just everyone who's wearing kanduras. It's such a beautiful piece of attire. Like people are literally, to me, look like they are floating, and no one's in a rush. Everyone's saying hi to everyone. The royal family's coming in. They don't have security, and because people respect who they are, what they do, what they stand for, and it's
the amount of times that the royal family just stopped next to me on the traffic light.
Right.
And I'll be like,
oh my God.
Okay.
Right.
Just crazy. Yeah.
But
it makes you love this space and the humility and kind of the service mindset and mentality of the government here, right? And that's a fact. I mean, I was born and raised here. I'm not an Emirati myself,
right?
But if you ask any citizen or resident of Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, you'll have the same exact thing. I mean, there are this famous video back in 2020 when the COVID lockdown happened.
Sure.
And in Dubai and in the UAE, it happened only 2 weeks, by the way, and then everything opened and it's just business as usual. But the point is, during this 2 weeks lockdown, people actually sang the national anthem from their balcony. It's on YouTube. Yeah,
I gotta watch it.
Unbelievable. But from the balconies in a street in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, just synchronized. It's crazy.
But that's what I'm, when I was saying prideful earlier, it's that, right? And it's the fact that the royal family doesn't walk around with security and pushing people out of the way. And coming from the Western world, or really in today's day and age, frankly, a lot of different countries, right? A lot of different countries internationally in Europe and Latin America and Africa and the US especially, and all these different countries. And you come to a place where people who run the city, the country, the area,
the nation,
nation, like there's no remorse, there's no hate, there's no anger, so it's very refreshing.
See, the other day, I mean, we'll switch topics to the topic at hand, but this is very interesting for me as well. There's always this kind of labeling of the power structure in nations, right? I mean, you have democracy, you have all sorts of political systems.
Yes.
And I always think to myself, no, I'm not an expert. This is not my field of research.
Right.
I'm just kind of observer. But this is how my mind works. I'm like, what difference does it make if you label it whatever you label it?
Yeah.
If the ruling class respects the ones being ruled, and this power structure, which exists everywhere in the world across history of humankind, you'll always have the ruling class and the ruled, right? If this ruling class has the best interest of the ruled at heart, and it's not just words, it's actually in action, like you can see it, right? People can feel it. It's not just slogans or sort of performative or decorative acts, you can see it while you're walking down the street across the levels of society. What difference does it make you label it, left, right, up, down, whatever it is? It doesn't matter. And that's how I think of it. I was like, I don't care what the ruling class is.
Right.
It's just as long as I have obviously free market, so I'm able to conduct my business without any kind of excessive intervention.
Yes.
There's fairness.
Right.
There's obviously there's justice system. There's security.
Right.
Right. And then everything else just falls into its place.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's in, you look at the East, you look at Dubai, you look at UAE, you look at all these territories. Dubai as a city, as a downtown hub, has really developed, undeniably over the past 5, 10, 20 years. Where else is like that in the world? I don't know, right? I don't know. I do a lot of business, which I'm sure that we'll get into, in China. And when I first went out to China in 2017, I was fascinated by the growth of Shanghai and Hong Kong and all these different territories. But I came later. This was the early 2000s when things were going from very few skyscrapers and buildings in Shanghai along the Bund, the iconic river that cuts through Shanghai, to, oh my God, it is a mecca. There's skyscrapers everywhere. There's 30 million people here, so on and so forth. And so I'm really excited to be in Dubai today, and to see and go back in 5, 10, 20 years what that is going to look like and how that's going to trend.
How is that echoed into the future?
Yes.
Exactly.
So this initial kind of dipping my toe in the water is wonderful.
Amazing. So what is it that you exactly, are you a speaker? Do you have a breakout session?
Yeah.
What
Yeah. So that's a great question. So what's funny is prior to this conference, I'm not like a big conference guy. Like, sure, I'm a bit extroverted, I'm a bit introverted. I'm kind of filed between the two, but I need time to recharge. So that's my introvertedness, where I could speak to someone, have a great conversation. Then after I'm going to go relax for a minute. But I started posting a lot on LinkedIn this year. Like it was a goal of mine to go really heavy into LinkedIn and to get my kind of brand, personal brand, business brand out there. And started talking a lot about my business. Just a few months ago, I get a message from a guy named Jim Louderback is his name. And his LinkedIn, he's so many followers and so many connections and and it's content or creator economy guru and this, that, the other. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Let's see, and he's like, hey, thanks for that. I love your content recently. I host a conference in Dubai. I think you'd be a really great speaker at the conference.
Which is this one.
And, I've had a lot of people reach out and they go, we want you speaking here. We want you doing this. So on all this year, because
Did you know what triggered him? I mean, what part of your content?
I don't know what post, but I think it was unique enough for him about creators.
That's the beauty about posting, right?
Exactly.
You don't know what will click.
You don't. And you don't know who's seeing it. And especially on a platform like LinkedIn, where if you like a post of mine, it shows up on your followers feed. So we connected and he gave me like kind of a, hey, I'd love for you to come to the conference I host. And I go, sounds great. Would love to speak to your team, so on and so forth. Lo and behold, they send the invite and I'm like, okay, I still don't have my flights yet. They send the social graphics. I still don't have my flights yet. This, that, the other. And so I don't know how realistic this all was. And then I got my flights and it's like, oh no, this is like sponsored by the government. Like everyone's really excited. We hosted this
things getting real.
Yeah. And I go, okay, this is going to be a big event.
Right.
And now I'm here. I have a speaking engagement this week. And I'm really excited to talk about all that I do and the opportunity of business in China.
So what's the topic? What's the key takeaway of your
unlocking China's $1 billion market?
So I think you're underestimating $1 billion. I mean, that's probably $1 trillion in China, right?
That's what I would assume so.
It's a good ice breaker because now $1 billion in China is like meh.
$1 billion at the billion follower summit. I think it all coexists really well.
I like that.
But I agree with you. I think there's much more opportunity than they're letting on.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's the thesis behind that talk?
It's funny. It's something that I've been trying to really ideate and kind of land on for the past week, since I've really been like focused on this conference. To me, I think the thesis is, I have to go there and I have to talk about my business. I have to talk about China for the 30 minutes that I'm up there. But in the actuality, the grand scheme of things, and what I think is it's less about this specific market and more about the macro kind of picture of marketing your services, your brand, your business globally, right? There's a reason why you go to a lot of international restaurants and they have menus in different languages these days.
Yes.
Right. And there's a reason why you go to a restaurant and there's a lot of people of different cultures in those restaurants. Well, the fact of the matter is those people in different cultures won't do business with you or this because they just don't know it. So if you market yourself to China, which is siloed, it doesn't have access to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Google, so on and so forth. You're then connecting by marketing to those local platforms with local Chinese consumers and Chinese consumers globally. So my philosophy and the takeaway that I want to hopefully get over the line is, while China's amazing and China's great for the business that I built and to each their own on what they think of the market, there's an underlying, tone, a 10,000 foot view, a high level perspective of work markets that are outside the realm of what you assume you're working. So just because you're on Instagram, you're not connecting with Instagram users in India. because you're not on their algorithm, you're not on their feed, you're not on their For You page. If you then were to launch a Indian translated, dubbed, subtitled, etc. Instagram account or YouTube or TikTok and so on and so forth, posting on times when they're available, they're awake, so on and so forth, with different hashtags and trends and tags, you're going to start developing in those markets as well. So my philosophy is less of, it is China focused, of course, because that's what my whole business has been built, but it's really the macro of trying to connect
going
locally.
outside of your own region.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the basic key takeaway is, if you're running a business, if you're having a personal brand which is linked to some sort of a business that you're generating revenues from, your livelihood, your sustenance, your growth, you have to make sure that you strategically take advantage of that global landscape.
I would say so, because if you think of every mass consumer, mass residential, mass finance, etc., like the biggest organizations, firms, revenue models in the world, they are global businesses.
Right, they're multinationals, exactly.
Commercial real estate, you have, I'm driving by to get here and I drive by the Hilton. Where's the Hilton? In every city in the, in the world. Then you go to different banks. There's different banks globally. Then you go and think of, okay, what about car companies? Cars are sold globally. Certain products, these headphones, these Shure microphones, like those are sold globally. So just as Shure is, we're speaking on a Shure microphone in Dubai, they're marketing and selling to consumers in Dubai.
Yeah.
Businesses, traditional businesses, aren't thinking like that. They're only hyper focused on what's immediately in front of them. Who's here? Who can I market to here? And I think we're getting to we already live in a world where it's so hyper connected through digital and through social and through, you do a Google search, you can find a random cafe in the middle of China and book a flight and go there. Why should you not do the same and act the same with a business?
Why don't people do it? Is it hard? Is it difficult?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. How do you market to someone in China and someone in Iceland?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not just the technology and the platform, the algorithms. It's also the probably the approach, the strategy itself, and probably the languages. I mean, language now is not a big deal because you have the kind of AI translation, dubbed, whatever,
Yeah.
But the culture itself, the way you speak to them, the nuances of that nation, if you don't get it, people see through it, and you'll be just another,
Yeah. But that's so true. I mean, but then you see the kind of odd case where I'm, in an Uber on the way here, and right around the corner before the water distribution center, I looked and there was a Korean, not just Korean restaurant, a Korean street food restaurant.
True.
In the middle of Dubai, and so it's I think it's definitely a lot more nuanced. It's not as easy as this. Sure, is a e-commerce focused business.
Yeah.
It's very easy to market a business like that. But if you have a service business like you or I, it's I would say more difficult because you're selling to the individual who's signing up for a service that you then have to provide.
Yes.
But who's to say that we're not going to be able to work with clients that are in other countries that are looking to market in China?
So obviously, widening your network into a global scale will obviously get you new sort of markets that when you tap into, it will diversify your sources of income, your revenue streams, and therefore you become more sustainable. Your growth becomes more attainable, and so on and so forth. So, but I'm sure you don't mean like someone, let's say like me, I'm still small, still young in my venture. Do I immediately start there, or do I have it as a strategic objective? And then if I achieve few goals or few milestones locally where my strength is, then I go and dabble with those sort of international markets and ways of acquiring customers.
That's a great question. I think you're a unique case because you have an executive coaching business.
Right.
And if we're talking about that business specifically, because I know that you do a lot of different things, but if we're talking about the coaching business, I think that you actually have a big opportunity to market yourself as an international executive coach, right? Whereas today, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does your website, if you go on it, will it say Dubai executive coach or
no?
Does it say anything about your location?
Well, in the about.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. But that's cool, and that makes it unique. If you hop on a call with someone, or there's a potential client who goes, "Hey, I'm in the U.S. I'm available at 3 p.m. As you're building your business, it's different. When you're a decade in, you probably won't take the call at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
When you're a year in, you might go, you know what? This is a really cool opportunity. I do want to speak to this person. This is what I'm passionate about. It's exciting. I'll take the call. I think that's what's unique about your business is you, in a lot of service-based businesses that do a lot of digital work.
Yeah.
You could take that call in the middle of the night. You have the blinds already down.
Right.
You have the lights on. You don't know what time it is here. So I think that side of it is something that more people should be thinking about, and potentially translating your website into different languages and I don't know, or posting content about I am an executive coach based in Dubai, and this is how I help this person based in Norway.
Yeah.
Develop their business.
That has a unique sound to it.
Right. And so I think then the gloves are off. Then the barriers and the walls that are built around, the virtual walls that are built around your business are kind of gone.
Andrew, you just made me think. I think what I'll do now is after we finish here, I'm going to go to my website and just do a couple of things. Simply because I know what you're saying, because I've always been torn between two schools of thought, right?
Sure.
One school of thought is focus. Yes. Focus. Make sure that your niche region, niche offering, niche specifics, specific individual, specific problem, specific unique mechanism that you just kind of go in. And then once you master that vertical, then you have the time or resources or experience or social proofing, whatever it is, that then you can go out.
Right.
But then the other school of thought, which I was speaking to one of my friends as well, he's kind of an investor. He's like, nope, you don't do that, because you know what? Guess what? Every venture, every innovation, every new thing that you do has a 92% chance of failure.
Sure.
So if you focus on one, you're trying to kind of aim for this dot at a 10 mile, like, why don't you just have 10 of those?
Right.
And then you'll have 10 8%. Right. And that's an 80%.
Yeah.
And then you have, whatever you shoot, something will hit. And I'm like, you know what? Math is easy.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that it's
time,
it's
resources. It's just crazy. I mean, if I talk about my own circumstances, obviously, I'm still bootstrapping. I'm lucky enough that, I started probably later in my life where I have the experience, and I'm a tinker, tinker myself. So I kind of play with things and figure out things, and I don't have to pay someone to do things for me, like this podcast or anyone else.
Yeah.
But that still sucks time and energy dry. You know what I mean? Like, so if I can as well go there, it's sort of okay.
I hear you. And I think that's where you're fortunate that you're just a year in, because I think don't get me wrong, you're a year in and have decades worth of knowledge and expertise in what you're doing that led you to going out on your own and doing what you do. What's really exciting is that you're going to start to see the things in the fruits of your labor really come into fruition, and being able to discern between something that could look bright and shiny and exciting, but actually might not reap any reward or benefit. And you'll be able to see something from a mile away.
Yes.
Go, even though it looks cool and is the shiny thing, I know that that's not going to work for me because it's not what I'm passionate about.
I can discern a mirage from an actual.
Exactly. And to your friend's point, I do think it's smart at times to do, a variable of things to open boundaries and to open your kind of mind and sight into those specific things. But again, the best leaders, the best executives, the best, family men, family women, the best in specific verticals are so focused on their craft. And that's why they're the best. And so I think as your business continues to develop and you really find this niche, right, in all that you do, that's where it's actually going to start to broaden and widen.
Yeah, and
because
then
secured that niche.
Exactly, and then like there's a stable base where you can get a foundation that you can build on. Because I always say this even to my daughter. I'm like, you know what? Just focus on one thing because it's like building your foundation. If you see a building being built here in Dubai, especially in Dubai, right? You can see the skyscrapers. Wherever in the world, I'm sure they'll spend probably months over months just the foundation.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And then the moment they start with the first floor,
10
it's
are
like
done.
Blink of an eye. It's just blink of an eye. And then you find 10. And I was like, or you go on like a vacation for like, if it's near where you live, you go on a vacation for a couple of days, you come back and then it's just 5 stories up. And it's like, where did this come from? So it's just the foundation. So like you said, I think this is my philosophy as well, my strategy, only because I don't want to gas out and only because I'm at a stage in my life where I can't gas out, not because I don't want to or I'm risk averse. It's because it's not just me. If you know what I mean? Like there are like people like my family, people depend on me. Like there's lots of people and it's irresponsible for me to kind of be this suicidal, kind of person who just goes in and then loses everything and goes to square zero. But the strategic thinking of what I do, can it be scaled outside and a national or a national and cross borders? That's the thinking that I have, and I think the answer is yes. Right. But when the time comes.
And I think can I offer? I want to see. I actually want to like A/B test something and see what you think about this. So
I love A/B testing.
Okay, so for your executive coaching business,
right?
Like, is that your number one? That's what you're excited about.
Okay, so you want to expose me? Okay, fine. So that's my marketing effort. So I got my PCC from ICF. Specifically, not to be a coach, but to use it as one of my funnels. Because when I coach a CEO, potentially he'll know me and I know him at an intimate level, not just personally, but also professionally.
Of course.
And then he'll be able to commission me to do business, B2B, like business work for his organization. Because you remember, he's a CEO, he has probably 1,000 people under him. So
what do you need me for? How can I help? Right? Yeah.
So that's why I became a CEO. So a CEO coach. So it's not my core,
right?
But it's a marketing funnel.
Okay. And so what would you say that your number one driver is? What are you most passionate about in the business that you do today?
Company transformations.
Okay.
So let's say organizations that are stuck in the weeds, operations, firefighting every day, and therefore they're not able to grow strategically and exponentially. Although all sort of metrics and signals kind of give you that potential, but they're not able to because they're kind of grounded with their own. So that's what I try to do, and that sort of excites me.
Got it. Okay, so here's the A/B test I'm going to offer you. Now that I know that, So on one end, if you were to do this as yourself, how many companies can you do that for on any, like, can you take on 3 contracts at once, 5 at once?
Yeah, so usually 5 at once,
Okay.
So that's sort of my still being able to breathe capacity,
And you're a husband and you have a kid. Do you have 1 daughter?
I have 2,
2 daughters, you have pets?
I have a pet.
Okay, so you have a pet. So you have a lot going on.
I have parents, exactly.
So, so you have these 5 contracts. You have your business, you've a wife, 2 kids, a pet.
Yeah, the podcast and everything else on the side.
Right? That's like you're juggling more than what you can fit in 2 hands.
100%.
Okay, so that's B, letter B. I was about to say number B, but let's letter B. So that's letter A. So letter B is, what if, so this is the alternative road. What if you had 2 people under you?
Yeah.
And they could handle, because you're the best at what you do, so you can handle 5. They can handle 3 each. Before you know it, you're doing 11.
Right.
You're already at more than 10 with 2 people under you doing. And how often are you checking in with the CEOs that you work with?
Once a week.
once a week.
Yeah.
So you're hopping on with not with their clients,
Right.
once a week, but once a month, once every couple weeks.
Right.
You tap in, see how things are going while you're still in contact with your 2 people that work with you. Does that excite you?
Absolutely.
Let her be.
100%.
So now we're down on this tangent, this road of now A's gone.
Right.
Here's B, here's C.
All right.
Okay. So
this is the new A. And
right. So you now have 2 people that work for you here, and we explain what B is. C, what if you took on 10 people?
Right.
Would that excite you?
Absolutely.
And before you know it, the 10 people, I don't know, I'm not going to do numbers that quickly, but that's a lot of clients. Right?
So like every like, let's say every, I would say deal, I mean, the deal size is about, I would say $100,000.
Cool.
Right. Which is about 6 weeks worth of engagement.
Okay.
Right. So
every deal is $100,000.
On average,
roughly.
Yeah. So that's the number that was like, that's okay. I mean,
okay, so I love this. Now we're talking numbers. So you have 10 people, letter C, 10 people doing this for you. Here you have a small team, it's 2 people, they're in-house, so on and so forth. Here's C, where now you have 10 people doing this for you plus yourself. So you're 5 clients, and these 10 people are 3 each. So that's 30. Now you're at 35. So before you know it, you're doing $3.5
about $3.5
million business, and it's a month. That's how much it costs? $100,000 a month.
You mean the cost
or the lifetime of the contract?
So 6 weeks.
Okay, great. Okay, so you have a huge business now on letter C.
Yeah.
I think that there is a world where you can market yourself, and I don't know, and this is not my lane, and I could be wrong, and I don't know if this exists, but you can scale by bringing on, a relatively new executive coach is like a champion for you, brings on their own clients, so on and so forth, who also markets and does their own promo and so on. It's kind of like a real estate agency.
Yes.
But there's also the approach of you are clearly a content guy.
Yeah.
There's 2 microphones, camera, right? There's a lot of cameras.
Actually 4. There's a couple on there.
There's a couple up there. There's lighting, this, that, the other.
Yeah.
There is a world where you become an executive coach.
Yeah.
And you're the guru who is creating courses on how to be an executive coach and giving people your stamp of approval, your logo, the reason as to why they keep it on their Instagram, their TikTok, their LinkedIn. I'm a certified blah 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 coach. And then in there, you have all of these people who are signing up for your courses. So while you're still getting to do what you're passionate about,
right,
bringing businesses out of the fire and extinguishing them, you still get to do this all the while. You're filming all that you're doing, you're shooting, and you're teaching people how to do it, and they're paying to do that. And then they're going to say, hey, I had the success story.
Yeah.
And keeping you in the loop of those things. And before you know it, you have 1,000 people that you've certified as executive coaches in your work, and all of these success stories. And all these people that you're helping, but they're paying you to learn how to do what you do best and what took you decades to learn and execute and funnel. And then you become the executive coach, but in a very specific capacity where it's today, if you go to executive coach market, like I look for these often, and it's the genre is huge.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll help you with your business. We'll help you do that. You're like, no, I love when your shit's on fire and we're going to come in and put it out.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
I'll tell you what, Andrew, you just literally almost read word for word my company strategy from now until 5 years. I swear, like my strategy is by end of this year, I will absolutely have the 2.
Yeah.
I literally have the 2.
Amazing.
And then which will kind of get me above a little from the weeds of my own weeds.
They can take you from 5 to 3.
Exactly. And then because if you've seen on my website, I mean, corporate engagements and sort of this is one thing,
right? But
then it's a means to another end, which is innovation, especially in our region, right? In the Middle East and in North Africa and so on and so forth. So what I want to do is I have more of those people that implement my methodologies, my frameworks, my blueprints, and then seeing those companies being able to grow and actually innovate and contribute meaningfully to innovation, and then have lots of them so I can go up and then I can focus on research, kind of commission proper academic research, and then focus on teaching. Not teaching as in university teaching or anything, exactly what you mentioned, which is really putting out the words about everything related to growth
and how you've helped
and how I've helped and everything else. And that's where I have the 10, 20 people working with me. And then 5, 10 years from now, this is where the business is so big. It's making probably, I don't know, 40, 50, 100 million a year. And this is where I exit.
That to me is really exciting. And I think what you're doing, if there's something that really awakened me at this conference is all these, a majority of the people there are content creators themselves.
Right.
They built these personal brands. The reason why I was invited is because I started posting on LinkedIn, right? So the more that you document, the more that you put this out into the world. And eventually, if you find that you have these crazy diehard fans that are so excited about the content and super, interested in what you do and want to replicate that themselves, they should be learning from you and they should pay you for that time. And you should guide them through processes in their clients themselves and see how you can help and eventually get a cut of the profits. And before you know it, you do have 1,000 clients a month.
Exactly. And so let's kind of double down on this growth, exponential sort of growth, right? Which is, it has to be cross borders. It has to be international, like you mentioned.
Yeah, of course.
It has to tap into regions such as China, Europe, India, those kind of borderless masses of consumers and businesses that kind of far dwarfs everything I could dream of accessing here in, let's say, in Dubai or in the UAE, which is, relatively speaking, when it comes to buying power and size of the market, the addressable market is obviously by, magnitude, orders of magnitude, much less than those areas, right?
Right.
How do I do it? Like, is it social media? Is it what do I do?
I'm a very firm believer in social media.
Right.
I'm a very firm believer that there's a lot of people, even that with like the bad rep that course selling, right, and things get. There's a lot of great people that are out there that are doing this, and I think, at least in my personal experience and research, that social media is a huge proponent. It is arguably the only proponent for a service-based business. Posting and talking about the work that you're doing, where you're succeeding, where you're seeing success, where you're passionate, etc. That's, there's 8 billion people on this planet.
Right.
You have a niche that 1% of the world's population probably can gravitate towards.
I agree.
And I think that is really exciting. And to be speaking about it every day, not to be like not to be a cynic, but when you're gone from this world, you're gone.
Yeah.
So how are you impacting that world?
True.
What are you doing? And don't take this, like I am not good at, like I need to be myself. I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is what you should do. I need to dive more into social media. Like I don't have a huge following, but I just started LinkedIn this year and got really comfortable with it. If I can replicate that in video format on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or X, and and all in I was going to say Meta and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
There's inherently going to be opportunity that leads from that.
Andrew, it's so hard. I mean, I'll tell you. So
it's hard.
Here's well, of course it's hard. I mean, I'm not complaining, but I'm trying to understand. I'll tell you why it's hard. So I've been dabbling with social media since 2020, right? So before that, I never believed in social media.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was wrong. COVID was a wake-up call. It was like, hey, I'm locked. And I remember I was an employee, so I was always working to kind of go up the ladder and become a boss and then become, boss of a bigger company and so on. And I was successful there, but then that was meaningless. You know what I mean? Like the rat race and all these forwards that we get from LinkedIn and otherwise. So I made the switch. And now for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been dabbling with social media and I'm not successful. Now I've tried every single strategy in the book. Obviously, I didn't do it well, right? But I've read books, I've tested, I've A/B tested. I've done everything, whether it's production value, whether it's the hook, the retainer, the double hook, the whatever, the second, whatever it is. thumbnail, title, caption, you name it, dub, everything. Something is not clicking. And the problem, and I had coaches, and those coaches, got with me on calls, and, I paid a fortune. And it's not like I cheaped out. Like, no, I've got the books.
Yeah, you really dove into it.
I've done, and I'm still doing, and I will never stop. Like, this is something that I know that for a fact that it works. It's just that there's an element of luck that I haven't yet hit. And I know that the more I try, the more I'll be kind of reaching that luck. But it's hard. And the problem is, what if you don't have enough gas in the tank?
Yeah, of course. That's such a good. So with you specifically, when you say you're doing everything, are you doing Instagram, Reels, and TikToks, and YouTube, and things like that?
So here's what I'm doing now. So this is what I did. So this is my sort of next level attempt, right? So now I went into the ads space, right? At least if you go to all of my companies and my personal accounts, you'll find them filled with content that is absolutely specific. Like it's all talking about, it's either snippets from talks like this. It's mostly business, mostly innovation, organizational culture, strategy, this sort of stuff, right? With a bit of a sprinkle of personal stuff, like my identity in between, just to make sure that people see a key person of influence. Now, what I did is I configured all of the pixel from every single platform you can think of. From X to Bing to Google to Meta to LinkedIn to Snapchat to TikTok, everything. And then I linked them all with Google Tag Manager. Right? So everybody goes into the same thing. So if one goes somewhere, all of the other pixels are connected.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've configured all the audiences. I've configured all of the events that is synchronized. And I've launched a couple of campaigns. And now I have numbers. Right? But that's my next level, right? Now, what I want...
It's cool because you're so meticulous, though. Yeah.
Like, because I don't have an option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like I've tried everything. I've literally... I'll tell you, I have no shame in saying this. I've actually copied word for word production way, even the hand movement of certain viral business, mind you, not fashionista or food or fitness. Exactly. And nothing happened.
Yeah.
So I've tested over and over and over again the concept of it's not content, there's something else. There's a mix of things. Obviously, it's a complex mix of variables.
Well,
there's one thing that I don't have that just
I think it's because and I have to really go through with a magnifying glass to understand. But from a high level and from an understanding sitting here now in the 30-second spiel, it could be simply what you're promoting.
Right.
So today, I would assume a majority of the content is I was helping this person and this is how I helped his business or her business. And what's an example of a perfect piece of content that you thought was really good but didn't?
Okay. So Demak Properties, which is a it's like Emaar here, the one that built Burj Khalifa. So it's another kind of real estate company here. Sort of invested $20 billion with Trump the other day, right?
Wow, yeah.
So one of those kind of local business owners went there. So I had a content and I was like, hey, the entire funding for the startup space in the entire EMEA is 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
Right? And you're sitting here as a business owner who is a multi-billionaire sending 20 billion outside.
Right.
Why don't you just invest it locally? And that's sort of the thesis behind what I said. And I tried to kind of repurpose that and everything else, but nobody cared.
Interesting. So I wonder if it was,
that piece of news was very viral, right? So it was picked up by everyone. Any post that echoed that had, but I went against the tide and I tried to kind of be the contrarian.
Yeah. And I wonder, I have a lot of questions. I wonder if that specific piece of content, despite it going viral, was so hyper fixated towards a business owner or businessman or businesswoman or someone in
investors mainly,
entrepreneurs, investors, things like that. How are they going to see that content? How are they going to receive that content? Even though it's on every news blog and, trend page and this, that, the other, are they going to see that and go, I want to watch this? I've seen it everywhere. I want to do this. Or are they looking for a more generalized? So you see that and then you think to yourself, how do we get local economies to invest in local economies?
Right.
I just saw that this person, I'm in Dubai, and I just saw that this person invested here and so on and so forth. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
And I started to do a bit of deep diving. And in this market, this person did this. In this market, this person did this. Who's with me? Like, why aren't we investing locally? Because if we did, we could do X, Y, and Z. And I wonder if, what I found, in similar to you, I went so hard into TikTok and every day was posting 1 to 2 videos for a couple weeks, and some would hit and some a few hundred views, but I put time and energy and I thought it was perfect. The ones that did well were generalized, completely generalized, not too fixated on anything. Had the overall overarching, we're talking about China, cross-border trade, cross-border commerce, so on and so forth, but it wasn't so specific to a client I was working, the success of here, this news story I read, so on and so forth. It was more generalized. Part of a piece of content that I'm going to be putting out soon is so fixated on the TikTok ban in the US.
Right.
But rather than making it focus on the TikTok ban in the US, I get to speak about TikTok may be banned in the US, but here's the macroeconomics and macroeconomy behind, in social economy, behind social kind of firewalls. And then getting to talk about China and how I can segue a simple news piece into the fact of the matter that in China, there's a lot that is censored and a lot of apps and websites and platforms are banned and not simply just not accessible in China because China was not given access to censor those platforms. Then you have in the States a platform like Meta, Facebook, where Mark Zuckerberg just the other week says, we're going to work to de-censor Facebook.
Yeah.
So then you think to yourself, you're like, wait a minute, that's a little convoluted. You're telling me that Facebook is super censored? The answer is yes. It's been yes for however long. What makes that different from a Chinese platform? And what makes Chinese platforms and the Chinese, government and acceptance and Bureau of Digital Apps and this, that, the other say no to Western apps because the Chinese government can't censor them? But who's censoring Facebook? Is it the local US? Anyways, it's going on this tangent of mass censorship,
right?
And how it might or not, this video might not be successful. It might not, but I'm speaking to the general aspect of X, Y, and Z, which all funnels back into how we're the best at what we do, bringing businesses to China.
And then you're linking those two back to your business, right?
Yeah.
What's your business?
So okay. so my business is called East Goes Global.
Yeah.
And we help Western brands, talent, and sports reach Chinese consumers. Yeah. So a bit like we were saying earlier, in China you can't access Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, YouTube, Spotify, Netflix, so on and so forth. So you wonder to yourself, you're like, okay, well, if they don't have access to those platforms, what does China think of someone like a Taylor Swift? What does China think of someone like a Will Smith or the Chainsmokers, or I don't know, random Kaya Gerber and Ninja and this creator and that creator? What do they think of the NBA? Because you hear on the news it's huge in China, but how? If they don't have Instagram or YouTube or
that's true, how?
Facebook or Google and they don't have Spotify, so how's Taylor Swift big in China? Well, all these people that I've mentioned, they have Chinese channels. They have local channels. They have Weibo, WeChat, Douyin, Red, Bilibili, NetEase, QQ. I mean, the list goes on. They have local channels where teams like mine, predominantly my team, were running those accounts for those people in that market to reach consumers and their fans on a very localized level. So rather than, a high school student in Shanghai who is 16 years old and she has to get on a VPN to join Instagram, where none of her friends are on, to follow Taylor Swift, why not bring Taylor Swift or Will Smith or whoever to China?
Interesting. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a very unique business model. I mean,
Thank
I've never
you.
heard of it before. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for the audience, right? So if you need to penetrate China, Andrew here
Please
is your
reach
man.
out. Yeah.
No, honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very, very smart idea, because you're bridging it through the traditional management of social media accounts, but
Yes.
now you're doing it across bridges to a region where literally abundance is the name of the game, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's, what's fascinating is the business, when I started it 8 years ago, it started with just, I named a bunch of entertainers, this, that, the other. Now we're dabbling into brands, social commerce, e-commerce, taking brands into China.
So let's say if you have a local UAE brand, and there's lots of local born and bred UAE brands
Sure.
who are struggling to penetrate China for whatever reason, obviously.
Yeah.
Let's say they reach out to Andrew. What happens?
Well, we do an audit of the brand, and we're very forthcoming. A lot of teams aren't. This is why I started my business, is that, there's a huge lack of trust within the market because of how siloed it is. So we come in as, a predominantly Western team built with, our whole team is Chinese.
So you have Chinese, obviously.
Yes.
Okay.
Team members, colleagues, employees, so on and so forth.
In China.
And in the US. Because
Wow,
we
of
want to
course.
be able to pick up the phone during normal business hours and have a call with a client in a project. So if, a traditional UAE brand is not working China, we go in, we audit what the market's saying about that brand. We look at it, we type the name in, we type the business in, we type their products, so on and so forth. And we see if people are even conversing about it. And if they are, great. Then we say, hey, we want to look into this more. This is what, our work does. We're going to get you on multiple different platforms. We're going to focus on influencers, which in China are called KOLs, key opinion leaders.
KOL.
KOLs,
Okay.
so key opinion leaders. They drive the opinions, right?
Really? Okay.
And come
That's
back and
interesting.
go, what's interesting? You guys, before us, you had this account. We'd actually recommend, you're kind of a high-end brand. We'd actually recommend that you should be on this platform instead of the one that you've been investing in. And we should recommend that you should work with these influencers instead of the ones that you're working with.
Oh, so you have a list of also local
Of course,
influencers
of course.
or
Yeah.
KOLs.
Yeah. And taking it a step further to go, your social commerce store isn't set up properly. Where are you fulfilling? How long does it take for a client to get a product? And taking it every day.
Especially if it's like merch or something, right?
Exactly. And just constantly taking it a step further and further and further. And eventually you're acting as if you have an arm of your business in that market.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How many platforms are there? Like potentially businesses can be on?
Sure. So you have 3 major social commerce platforms, right? So social commerce is a TikTok shop, an Instagram store.
Right.
In China, Douyin, which is the TikTok of China. So they have a Douyin commerce platform.
They don't have TikTok in China?
So this is where it gets granular. If this is ByteDance,
Right.
the owner of TikTok, TikTok in China is over here. It's totally separate. You can't find, if you type in TikTok on the Chinese app store with a Chinese Apple ID, you can't find, it won't pop up.
I thought it was the Chinese kind of mainstream social media that then went global. It's not.
It is. So
Okay.
that's where it gets convoluted. So Douyin is the TikTok of China. If you type in TikTok, that's what you will get is Douyin.
So it's a rebranded sort of.
So that's the original.
That's the original.
TikTok is the rebrand.
Interesting.
So when I go into Douyin today, new shopping features, functionality, social commerce on Douyin was around way longer than TikTok shops were on TikTok.
More advanced, isn't it?
They're A/B testing things on Douyin all the time, and then when it's successful, they then bring it to TikTok. So there's Douyin, there's Little Red Book, which is like fashion, beauty, makeup, skincare, high-end products and clothing and attire. And then the last one is WeChat.
Of course, yeah.
WeChat's the biggest, one of the biggest social platforms in the world. You can order a pizza. You could order a driver to come pick you up. You can message your friend. You could call your friend. You could FaceTime your friend. You could pay for things at restaurants.
All from WeChat.
Everything in WeChat. And then outside of that, you have the, Shopify sort of platforms, which is Tmall. So in the Western worlds, even in the East, you guys are familiar with Shopify.
Yes.
You whitelist Shopify. So you go to your, the name of your website.com. If you're selling something, it's just Andrew Spalter, eastcoastglobal.com, and you sell things, but it's built on Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
In China, you have tmall.com/store.
Gotcha.
Right. So it's just forward facing. But those are the main, the first
so
three.
They come to you. You audit the product, you audit the market, you see which platforms, you give them obviously the initial strategic advisory of this is the best platform, this is the best market, start here, this is where it goes.
Exactly.
How long until they'll be able to be, I don't know, profitable?
So it depends.
6 months, 1 year?
Yeah, I mean, very quickly. It really depends on the kind of organization, how many products you're looking to offboard, and so on and so forth. Because we work with teams that have hundreds of thousands of units already manufactured, already made, just sitting in a warehouse waiting to be sold.
Yeah.
They reallocate some of the shipment. Or, because marketing is really hard. I mean, getting leads, getting people to click. Totally.
I'm assuming paid ads, right? So everything is paid ads.
Yeah, majority paid ads
with some organic, obviously, just to make sure that people see that there's some sort of movement on the thing. Sorry.
No, it's okay, but that's the beauty about commerce is you could really build. When people ask for projections, you could get really granular and say, well, months 1 through 3, we have to invest $100,000 into. This is just hypothetical. You don't have to invest. We have to invest $100,000 into paid ads, influencers, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Plus the COGS or the cost of your products. Let's say it's another $25,000. So for the first 3 months,
you mean shipping and that, or the cost of the product itself?
Manufacturing, shipping,
okay.
all
so
that sort of
that's
stuff.
Different. Yeah. So they have marketing for, as you said, the different channels of acquiring clients, right?
Exactly. Right. So let's say you're in the hole in the first 3 months for $125,000.
Okay.
But the 25,000 units could be sold at $3 a pop. Right. So you do 25,000 times 3, $7 or $75,000. So now you're only in the hole for $50,000. Okay. But your brand is kind of bigger. You're kind of more notable. You have buyers. You started the groundwork. The next 25,000 units could still be sold at $3 a pop, but your marketing expense is a lot less.
Right. Because so the initial inertia is
exactly. So the first 6 months, now you're profitable.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it all depends on the variables, which are what's your...
So if they want to do a campaign, you say, I mean, for reputed business that is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per month of sales, and they would have to allocate around $25,000?
It depends, right? Because you could be a brand that's really hot right now, like a Champion or Fear of God or something like that, who just innately just does well and is super successful in China, not spend a lot to tap into that market.
Oh, okay. So I'm talking about someone who no one knows about their very existence anyway.
Yeah. So there isn't like a baseline sort of number. We like to say it's anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a month.
Okay.
Yeah. To start
on one platform.
Multiple. Yeah. So you have
with influencers
here. Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, from a business perspective, that's a good. And that includes your fees, or that's just ads?
And fees as well.
Fees. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the floor of how to penetrate China at an e-commerce sort of.
Totally. And that's just with brands. We work with so many talent, right? Like
of course.
That's one of our pillars is brands, athletes, sports, talent, so on and so forth. When we work with them, a large majority of their business is just to gain
celebrities.
And they want to gain followers. They want
it's just a matter of followers. Yeah.
They are brand marketed in a market that they're not tapping into to expand their presence.
So that's at least 100 million followers just in a year or so, right?
I wish, but it's usually hundreds of thousands, millions, so on and so forth. That business model is a lot more different. That's a monthly retainer for anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month, 4, 5, 6, depending on the client. For us to run your channels, to verify your channels, to manage your channels, subtitle content, recommend content that you should shoot, so on and so forth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like a complete turnkey done for you service that
Totally.
just takes, and obviously it's retainer.
Yeah.
But how confident are you now after doing it for, you said 8 years?
Yes.
Like, how confident are you to be results, obviously not success rate, but I mean results confident?
So
in China,
going back to what I was saying earlier, where we audit, and we do the research preliminary, we only work with people who we know are going to be successful in work.
Yeah.
We never want to take on a client these days that we don't think are going to do well, and then they get a bad taste in their mouth. We've had enough of those in our past.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we saw we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Darn it.
Billion and a half
so
people.
You're not going to work with me then?
No,
Okay.
but I'm telling you that this model, there are so many Chinese businesses that are doing business with the Middle East today. And there is innate opportunity for you to come in, probably work with the government here even.
Right.
To go, I want to help these businesses. Because from the top down, this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate in China meets with His Excellency in tourism, and then they want to do cross-tourism commerce and bring more people into each other's markets. And Emirates doesn't,
or even the family business, because the family businesses here are big, right?
Yes.
I mean, the biggest thing in the GCC, generally speaking, the GCC, which is the Saudi, UAE, Qatar,
Yes.
Kuwait, Oman, and Bahrain. So this kind of group of nations. Family businesses is the biggest thing that drives the economy, more than multinationals and others, right?
Yes.
And those people usually struggle to go outside, especially to the East and China. And I think if they partner with someone like you, because I do business with them and this is what I do. I make sure that they are able to kind of fix their house first, fix their laundry, make sure that they're stable
so they can go forward.
And then the next step is exactly that.
And I think, a big missing piece that a lot of people don't realize, and I think in all business, right, is everyone who comes in and does business in a certain country, they need help. How do we work this market? And it's not going to be just some agency that helps you market. Well, foundationally, how do we succeed in a local market? And that's where my team, imagine if we were all just like white guys and girls trying to work China.
Right.
Didn't speak Mandarin.
It wouldn't
sense. Work. So we have to bring on the pros. And I think like that's, intrinsically, if a Chinese brand, a US brand, a British, whoever comes to Dubai to help to do business, I think that there's a huge market there as well to help these international trades and businesses that come in and want to do business and structure their business properly, but don't know how. And they might do the baseline. Okay, we did this, we did this, we did this. Who's to say that that's going to work for them? Yeah.
So what's the average client tenure for you? I mean, because it's obviously a retainer. There's an obviously upfront sort of lump sum of investments that they have to do to make sure that things are moving. And then once they move, there's a monthly retainer. Yeah. What's the average? You've been 8 years. Do you have clients that have been with you for 8 years?
We do, which is really nice. And those are some of our best partners, not just monetarily, but just because they're partners and we've worked with them for so long. The average, I would say now, what's really great is I was saying, I hinted at this earlier, but like we worked with a lot of people who we didn't know would not work in China, right? So we started to realize and shift gears 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, we started to only really focus on people who we know are going to succeed in the market. And we have those people. So now like the tenure is 2 to 3 years. Because we've been working with those people. And that's when we made the switch to go, we know that you're going to be successful then. And we know in a few years, you're still going to be here.
Right. And if they're not, just these are the principles and foundations that you need to build, go fix that. And then come probably be able to help you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
That's a great question. I was fortunate where this year we had an opportunity to exit.
Really?
Yeah. So, well, not this year, technically a week, 2 weeks ago, last year, right? I love it at the end of the year when you see someone, you go, see you next year.
Next year. Yeah. Never gets old.
Yeah, exactly. So we that fell into our laps. It was inbound and it was really exciting. And it was exciting because it was real. It was one of those things where it's like, wow, like I knew that this would come. I didn't know how it would. I would hope that it did, and it did. The deal wasn't great. Was
it based on a multiplier or?
It was 10x on EBITDA.
That's really good.
Which was great. And I think it's because our business is so unique.
Yeah.
It can't really be replicated. We are the leaders in the space in what we do.
And I'm assuming your EBITDA is really high, right? Because you don't have kind of moving parts that need
the biggest expenditure is overhead.
People, exactly.
Right? It's for a service-based business, of course. It's always going to be the people that you hire.
Yeah.
So that was exciting. But the exit that was proposed was 50% cash, 50% equity. I don't bet. I never bet at sporting events. My dad, he instilled this in me. He's like, never bet on anything that you don't know the outcome to. Right. And
that's smart. Very smart.
It's saved me money in the past,
You're not a gambler. That's good. Yeah.
Sure. But I also have a lot of friends who are good at gambling, and I'm like, wow, that looks fun.
Can you be good in gambling? I mean, how do you tell unless you...
Well, you only speak about the good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough.
So I can't morally, I was not able to say, let me bet 50% of what I've worked on this in equity on this business. I don't know. I'm not running your business, so I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know if you're going to exit. I don't know what that's going to look like. So long story short, I decided to walk away from that. What that then opened up was, I can exit. Like, that's an opportunity. The 10x is real. Like that, so that was a very exciting moment and kind of turning point 8 years into the business. We're so
almost at the right time, right? Because it usually exits between 8 to 10 years.
I would think so. Yeah. So nowadays, I'm really reinvigorated. I still wake up in the middle of the night. I'm passionate about my business. I get really excited. I think about it, talk about it, so on and so forth. But to me, getting into this, I knew that it wasn't going to be the forever thing. I think it's a means to an end for a lot of people, but it's not my end, and I was never really money motivated launching this business. And now that it's come and there's an opportunity in the future to take a step further into something else that I could want to do. And it's an exciting time. With that said, part of our trajectory for the next year is expanding into other markets. So localizing a lot of content for other territories such as South Korea, Japan, Latin America, and potentially India, which is relatively newer for us. Then really focusing on live commerce. So that's a really exciting opportunity for us. We work with so many celebrities that have celebrity-backed brands. And so they are their best marketer versus a clothing brand. You don't have a face behind the clothing brand. How do you market a t-shirt? It costs a lot of money.
Exactly.
Right?
The market is not the same. Exactly.
So versus a celebrity hopping on and going.
So you want to double down on that kind of side of the business.
Exactly. Right. Because there's
no shortage of that anyway.
It's a huge part of our clientele as well.
Sure.
And between that and then distribution of broadcasts and broadcast rights and things like that, which is exciting and relatively new for us.
In between East and West.
Yes. So.
Oh wow, that's
there's a lot of
scope.
Award shows. There's a lot of sporting events. Yes. There's a lot of things that don't get broadcasted in China.
True, especially live. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we see another opportunity there. And so all of these things are great pillars of the business where it is really exciting right now. It is really exciting to dive into something, and we have a big enough team. We don't have to invest much in overhead to get to those points in that opportunity. And now that we had this offer, I'm looking at things very differently, because the way that you value business for most acquisitions is through EBITDA.
Yes.
So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, every hire, every bonus, what is the reasoning behind X, Y, and Z, right? Because if I hire, an entry-level kid right out of school and he's $50,000 a year plus commission and he's working in sales and this, that, the other, it's $50,000. If you're doing $5 million a year and you go from 5 to 5,050,000, a 10x multiple on that is not dramatically different, but it's a difference of $500,000 at the end of the day when you're doing 10x on 50,000. Yes. So that's $500,000. That's significant.
Very interesting. Obviously I know exit. I'm planning my exit, but that's a good way. It's not the 50,000, it's the multiplier of that 50,000 when it
Yes.
comes to
Yeah.
because anything that eats from EBITDA is obviously going to be minus that multiplier
Exactly.
from the end result or the sale.
Right. And
that gave you a new perspective.
Yeah, but then if you do, if you're hiring someone in sales at $50,000, you would assume that they would pay for themselves.
Or obviously, and more. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and more. Exactly. So,
which will, I mean, increase the profit margin and make the EBITDA as high. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's where you look at it 360, right?
Right. Exactly.
So you've been here for 3 days in Dubai. What's your advice to entrepreneurs in Dubai?
To entrepreneurs in Dubai?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Because I don't know the business landscape too much.
But that's what I'm trying to say. So you see, you love it, you hate it. The United States have set the scene for entrepreneurship globally, right? Sand Hill Road, Silicon Valley, all of those kind of places is where entrepreneurship, true, real entrepreneurship, risk-taking, investments, slaughterhouses, all those sort of kind of stories coming from there. And every single case study and use case that you study in any education system, MBA or otherwise, always coming from Harvard, from Stanford, from MIT, which is based on that ecosystem.
Yeah.
So when you come and mingle with people here, what's the thing that you see kind of different, and what's your advice, even if you don't know the
No, I think people here are really fortunate. Like there's no income taxes, there's no like miscellaneous random taxes on things, there's no kind of government that's watching over you. Like you look at entrepreneurs in the state of California and they're fleeing in droves, right? Like the taxes are incredibly high. The quality of life isn't as great as what it probably once was. There's so much overhead. There's so much going on. The property taxes everything is high. To live in a state that doesn't really favor the employer. So I think for people here, I think they have the opportunity to take a lot of risk. I think they have the opportunity to really build the business from the ground up. I think they have the opportunity to, you look at something in let's say that you do live in California and your taxes are, depending on the tax bracket, but they're 20% federal taxes, say at the end of the year, or whatever it is. And then another, 15 to 30% on state income taxes when you pay yourself a salary, right? So at the end of the year, you're actually walking away. Let's say it's $100,000 salary, $200,000 salary. You're making $125. That is that's $75,000 that you could reallocate somewhere else.
Yes.
So in a market like Dubai, like you don't have that overhead. It's a lot easier to build a business from the ground up because you're not paying taxes and income taxes and salary taxes and state taxes and all these different things that could really be reinvested back into yourself so that you have a better quality of life, or back into your business
to grow. So take risk, grow faster, reinvest.
Yeah.
Don't waste.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also think it's such a new market, relatively new speaking to the rest of the world. I mean, Dubai's been around for however many years.
Yes.
But in the world's ecosystem and the world's economy, Dubai is relatively new.
Yeah, it's 15, 20 years. Yeah.
So to me, there's also huge opportunity to come in and build a very long-standing, very profitable business, right? Like people tend to forget about the family business that's been around for 200 years.
Yeah.
That for all you know, could be $1 billion organization, right? And so I think that there's also a huge opportunity to lay the foundation today for your kids and grandkids for your future to come in like the royal family and just continue to work with your family.
Amazing advice. So take risks and think long-term, like long-term generationally.
Yeah.
Not just...
Why exit?
Yeah.
Why not build something that you're so proud of and like passionate about every single day? I know for myself getting into this business, like I wanted to do something in connectivity and it landed in my lap because I had an opportunity in China. And now I still think that there's something in me that's about connectivity, but like I love products. I love design. I love things. I'm selling a service right now.
Yeah.
It's not a product. It's not sold online. I'm not on Amazon. I don't do any, so innately, I think that's in my future. And that could be the start of Andrew Spalter Enterprises.
Yeah.
Or spinning up designs and I don't know, things like that could be really exciting and be spun up in a week or so. But yeah, I think there's something in the opportunity where when you're not giving, 50%, 40%, whatever it is, back to the government, you have 40% more every year that gives you that leg up in whatever you're doing comparatively to the rest of the world.
And take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, I'll tell you, I think we have to stop because otherwise, I know we can go for hours and hours because I have a million other questions and other topics that we can talk about. But I think we'll call it a day now.
Cool.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is a blast.
Thank you.
Cool.